Welcome to episode 5 of the Beyond the Guitar podcast, where we help you play the music you love and we talk all things guitar and beyond. I'm Nathan Mills, joined by my co-host, Jeremiah Diaz. And before we get into our topic today, Jeremiah just released a really cool project. Jeremiah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mentioned it the last couple podcasts, but it's finally out. My buddy and I, Andrew, were in a band, and we released a little ambient EP called Corona Ambient EP because of quarantine and all that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm happy with how it turned out. It's very relaxing ambient music, and it was fun to work on. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned it's an ambient EP, and you've talked before how it's kind of the goal behind it was kind of relaxation, especially in light of everything that's going on. So kind of tell us a little bit about how that concept came about. Like, how did you and Andrew start talking about it?
Well, basically Andrew was working on that idea, and I think he'd actually been wanting to do like an ambient album for a while, because we have various ambient tracks on our previous albums, and our albums are pretty short. They're like anywhere from 30 to 35 minutes or whatever, so they're not long albums. But he was just wanting to do an ambient album, and then the quarantine hit, and he was like, hey, this is like the perfect time to do it. So we're like, all right, yeah, let's do it. So he put together a bunch of guitar-centered tracks, electric guitar, and some synth-centered tracks, and then he sent them over to me, and I added stuff to them, and then I would send them back and have suggestions like, hey, maybe you should add some guitar here or whatever, and then I mixed them and then mastered them, and then we put it out. So it took forever for our distributor to get it online, which is weird, but it's out now, so that's fun. It's on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. But we're pretty stoked with how it turned out, and people have been telling us that our friends and stuff, that they've been digging it. So that's good.
Yeah, it lulled me to a peaceful sleep the other night.
Yeah,
seriously though, I put it on while I was going to sleep, and it's just really cool because I don't typically listen to a lot of ambient music like that. But this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because we've talked about how I have a secret love for ASMR.
I knew you were gonna go there,
and
I wanted to bring it up, but I wasn't. Yeah, I wanted to bring it up, but I wasn't sure if it was. Subject.
You know what? No, yeah, the world is gonna know. All right, I unapologetically enjoy ASMR. It's very therapeutic. And
it's so weird.
But that's the thing, though. So you make fun of me for that, but that's essentially what you're going for with this. And I mean, obviously in a more musical context, but it's that same concept where it's like sound therapy, right? Like the idea is that, you kind of listen to this and let the sounds wash over you. And
I mean, it's less, this is an iPhone charger in an unopened case.
Oh man, I'm so relaxed.
Yeah, it's less of that and more, music. But it's okay. I'm not a hater. If people out there like it, I'm not trying to hate on you guys.
That's right. Yeah, I'm gonna get you.
Y'all are weird, but
I'm
whatever.
Gonna get you into it one of these days. I'm the king of relaxation, so this is it's a subject that I'm an authority on. But
Dr. Nate,
Dr.
right. Nate Dowg.
But so, I guess with that in mind, maybe before I ask this next question, do you have a sample, like a clip that we can have everybody listen to so they can kind of get a better idea for what we're talking about?
Yeah, sure. So I will say Andrew was he's like the architect of Junko. I will say he's like the main dude. But I'll play a clip that has something that I added kind of in the center of the mix for a little bit. So let's listen to that. So that was the shortest track on the EP. Most of the other ones are like over 5 minutes and they're just drony noises. So for that one, I thought it'd be interesting to have like a recognizable melody. And it's that little 3-note melody that goes like. So I don't know, when I was mixing it, for whatever reason, I felt like the ending could be kind of big and epic for whatever reason. So I wanted to get like a organic sounding synth, and that's what that's kind of what that bass thing is at the end. Is
right.
So I was pretty happy with how it turned out. I liked it, and then I showed Andrew. I wasn't sure if Andrew would be down for it, because the whole idea was for the album to be mostly ambient music and not necessarily anything in your face. But he liked it, so I liked the way it turned out. It was fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. And which track is that?
Oh, that one is called Cycling.
So yeah, I feel like that's such a cool effect, because there's this kind of concept in music where I talk about this, for example, like for classical guitarists out there, like Leo Brouwer, a lot of his music is very contemporary and there's lots of like dissonance and things like that, but every once in a while he'll sprinkle in this like simple, pretty melody that kind of just comes out of the chaos, and because of that contrast, it's so much more impactful. And I think obviously this is different in the sense that it's coming out of the opposite of chaos, right? It's coming out of just this relaxing, this relaxing soundscape, but this melody that shines through with that unique tone, because it's coming out of this really just ambient wash of sound that's not super melodic by any means. It makes those 3 notes even more impactful, and the tone, just the way that it kind of crescendos and builds, it really does add to that kind of, it's hard to explain, but I feel like it adds to that therapeutic concept as it's kind of like, building to this climactic moment. And I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you really have an answer for this or if it's more just through trial and error and experimentation, but when you make an ambient album like this, where the goal in mind really is to help people kind of relax and just have something to listen to more like in the background, whether it's as they're trying to sleep or they're trying to kind of forget about the stresses of what's going on right now, or they're studying or working, whatever. Is there kind of some science and strategy behind what, the sounds that you're making, and like how ambiguous the melody or harmony is going to be to like make it as relaxing as possible? Or are you guys kind of just doing some experimentation and letting your ear just kind of guide you based on what you feel like just happens to be relaxing?
I'm going to have to speak for Andrew, because we didn't really talk about that too much, but I don't think there was anything specifically scientific behind it. Although the nature of like noisy music in general, like noise can be very soothing. Like, people sleep with fans on, or the beach, wind, that kind of stuff. Noise, controlled noise can be very, very soothing. Right. So the amp that, Andrew uses, and then the loop station, because it's all layered on top of each other, it creates a lot of noise. Yeah. So that aspect of it can be very soothing. And then, Andrew mostly used like a lot of 9th chords and 7th chords, and just chords that sound very cloudy and, just soothing. It's just kind of how they sound. Right. And it's just, I guess, kind of a music theory thing. But and then for myself, when I try and add synth stuff for this type of music, because there are other times where, when I'm making music where I want it to sound like a synth, I want it to sound like very electronic. But usually for Junko, when I'm adding stuff, I want it to sound organic, almost like an instrument that you could actually play in real life. Even if it's like not completely analog, like if it's, like an electric guitar, right? Electric guitars have an analog element to it. and even the amps, a lot of times are tube amps or whatever, and so it's not digital. So the way that I like to make the synth sound for Junko, I like to make it sound organic, so that when people listen to it, it's kind of a soothing sound and not necessarily something that's like, oh, that sounds like a synth. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the first thing that would pop in your head is that it's a synth.
Right.
So
yeah, I imagine this kind of goes back to what we talked about with the our beef with some of the like mindset of like film scores where they talk about like music should be felt and not heard. Like, I feel like in this instance, that is kind of what you want to go for, where it's like the less is more. And it is something it's just this space and just this like, kind of a wall of sound rather than like specific things that you're really like latching on to in specific melodies or specific tones.
Yeah, for sure. And for this track, Cycling, for whatever reason, I felt like having a little recognizable melody in there fit the song. Right. And track, I guess. I don't know. Can you say song for something that doesn't have words to it? I don't know.
Yeah, people get uptight about that, but I don't. I say go for it.
But so I thought it would be cool for people that if they heard back through the album, like they would, because they might get lost in the album, like not know what track they're on. But then once they hit this one, they'll hear that little 3-note melody, and they may not recognize it the first time that it's the same melody, like for the high pitched tones I have earlier on, for the high synth that I have, and then like it's very like it's almost bell like at first,
right?
But at the end, it sounds like a bullhorn or something, in a soothing kind of way, I think. But you may not notice it the first time you listen to it that it's the same melody. But I wanted it to be something like that could be a kind of a flagship or like a marker. While someone's listening through the album, like, oh, I remember this part. Like, this part is kind of sticks out. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the other stuff in the album, it's still ambient, but and not as recognizable. But we did leave a little, like a few hints in there, kind of like landmarks, I guess you could say, to like kind of know where you are in the album. So once you get familiar with it, it'll start sounding more like something that you can actually hum to, or your brain might know exactly where you are in the song or in the album. Yeah. But yeah, at first, for sure, if you're just wanting it to be something that's in the background, like that's definitely something that we wanted, just for people to be able to have in the background and just take a load off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, again, congrats on the release of that. I know you've had a lot going on all at the same time. You've been juggling a lot of things. And I know how much work goes into that. So huge congrats. So again,
thanks, man.
For everybody, this is Junko is their band, and it's the Coronambient EP. And it's available, like Jeremiah said, Spotify, Apple Music, all of the platforms. So go check it out, add it to your chill, relaxing study playlist, wherever you see fit. But I can vouch for it. It's really cool.
Thanks, man. And one thing, if people get confused as to what is our music and what isn't our music, because I mentioned this last podcast that there's a couple other artists out there with the same name. It's really easy. You can just look up Junko in Google with Bandcamp. So just look up Junko space Bandcamp, and our Bandcamp page has stuff that's all ours, and you can find it all on like Spotify and iTunes and that as well, but it might be jumbled in with other people's music that isn't ours. So anyway. Awesome.
So today, we thought it would be cool to talk about what it's like to go viral. I've had some, one big moment in particular throughout my career of, quote, going viral. And we thought it'd be interesting to talk about kind of the expectations versus reality of that. Is it really as game changing to your career as many people think? Is it something that's really worth chasing? We talked about this briefly in previous episodes, but we thought it would be worth really unpacking in an episode in and of itself. So my viral moment, I guess you could say, was a Fortnite video. So if you happen to somehow not be familiar with Fortnite, it was and is kind of a global video gaming phenomenon. It kind of took the world by storm. It made people's careers in the, YouTube and streaming world. People are making, millions of dollars creating content around this game. Basically every kid on the planet was playing this game for a while. And I admittedly really enjoyed the game as well back in its heyday. I'm a sweaty gamer. I could keep up with those 12-year-old kids for a while, but then they eventually started getting the best of me, so I had to quit. But
it's kind of sad when you realize we're getting old, man. 30 years old.
That's right. Those reflexes, you can't keep up with those youngsters.
Can't keep up with those kids.
And then when they start they start insulting you over the mic, and then you gotta be careful not to Yeah. You don't want to make any 12-year-olds cry or anything.
Listen,
so you just gotta take it.
Yeah.
These kids are brutal, man. But yeah, so it's this global phenomenon, and in the game, because I was familiar with the game since I played it, in the game as essentially it's mainly a way to taunt other players. You can spin it however you want, but it's a way to taunt other players. Your character can do a dance, and every dance that the character can do is accompanied by music, and each dance has its own song and kind of genre of music that goes with it. And Fortnite turned this into a whole thing where you could pay for new, more unique dances with different music. And so there started to grow this catalog of these Fortnite dances with these little unique little songs that came along with it. And so I kind of had this idea that I could play that music, on guitar, make little arrangements and do a mashup of all these different dances on the guitar. And it was this perfect storm as far as why this video went viral. It was a combination of the fact that Fortnite was this global phenomenon. I had this kind of creative and pretty unique concept. At the time, I don't think anybody had done what I did yet, where again, I took a compilation of these different dances. I had the clips of the gameplay with the Fortnite characters dancing on my monitors behind me, and I played in sync with them dancing, and I had what another guitarist called, really eloquently, he talks about how to make your content really shareable. This is Acoustic Trench. For those of you who know him from the Vine days, and he's still making some really cool guitar videos with his dog Maple to this day, on YouTube and Instagram and everything. Really, he's a brilliant guy, and he talked about this concept of having layers in your videos where you keep adding these different kind of shareable elements, different elements in your video that make it unique. So, for example, if we take this Fortnite video, one layer would just be the most basic layer is a guy playing Fortnite dances on the guitar, right? That's kind of unique. It's something a little bit different. You add another layer by having the dances on the monitors behind me, right? So that's another kind of interesting, eye-catching thing that makes it a little unique. Then you add another layer where I was wearing a blue wig with a headband. So I was doing, again, anybody who's really familiar with Fortnite knows the name Ninja. He's a big streamer that kind of blew up with Fortnite and was synonymous to Fortnite for a while. And so I kind of was mooching off of his name and his image. He had dyed blue hair, and
is he still playing Fortnite?
Yeah, he's I don't really keep up with his.
I haven't followed Fortnite. I don't know how big it is still. Is it still pretty big?
I'm not in touch with the youth of today to really know, to know how big it is now as far as, because that's really the indicator of how it's doing. I know it's not in its peak anymore. It's far from its peak.
Right.
People are still playing it to the extent, I don't know. But he's definitely, Ninja's also not at his peak. His peak kind of rose and fell with Fortnite's glory days, although he is still doing very well for himself.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I thought it would be kind of funny to pay homage to his, like, he had this kind of iconic look with his blue hair, and he would put this yellow headband on. And so that was another layer. I had this kind of ridiculous blue, like, mullet wig that I just got from, like, Target or something, and had the headband. So that was another layer. And so you put all these things together to just keep giving people reasons to want to share it. Like, they might not share it because of one thing, but then they see this other thing, and that might be just what they need to, like, like little Johnny down the street will think this is awesome. Let me, Snapchat it to him or whatever. I think that was the most dad sounding thing I could have probably just said.
Can you send videos, YouTube videos over Snapchat? I have no idea.
Who knows? I think it's TikTok these days anyway.
Yeah, TikTok and geez.
That's right.
I can't keep up.
No, I can't keep up. We're too old.
I barely use the social media of my generation. I don't even have a Facebook account. I deleted that thing. I hate Facebook.
That's right.
Anyways.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, it's a whole can of worms. Yeah.
But so it was that, and then I actually still am very proud to this thumbnail to this day. The other factor was a big role in the YouTube world is having an eye-catching thumbnail, which, again, for those of you who don't know, that's the image that people see of your video when they're browsing through YouTube, and it's a big deal.
Where they put an arrow pointing to nothing.
Yeah, exactly. That
has nothing to do with the video.
Just throw an arrow in there, and then have like googly eyes somewhere, and then that's going to be like guaranteed somebody's going to click on it. But yeah, there's like a whole clickbait that goes into getting people to click on your video. But the idea is that you want to have an eye-catching thumbnail, because if your video by that one image doesn't look interesting to people, they probably won't click on it, right? Because there's just a million things vying for their attention. So the thumbnail that I managed to put together, because I had that crazy wig and everything, and just the design of it worked out really well to just look really clean and really popped. All those things worked together to make this video really shareable. And, of course, the YouTube algorithm picked it up. And long story short, it ended up, I think where it is right now, by now it's really slowed down, but in a short span, it passed over 10 million views. Today it's at about 13 million.
That's still so crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. I never would have anticipated reaching any type of video with those views, especially with, I'm playing classical guitar. This is, of course, a far cry from any traditional classical guitar content. But still, the technique involved, the foundation upon which all my arrangements are built, they're built upon that, that tradition and that style of playing. And so to have a classical guitar video of sorts, passing 10 million views is insane. And again, nothing I ever expected. So to kind of move on to what that was like, my experience, and then comparing that to my expectations, it was, first and foremost, it was super fun. Like we talked last week about like vanity metrics and all that. Like I was obsessing over the views. Just to see them like skyrocketing, was just such a mind-blowing experience. I took a picture of it, my like YouTube analytics, where it kind of just shows a graph of your views and everything like that across your whole channel. It was just like a sheer wall straight up of like my views just like skyrocketed instantly. It was such a bizarre looking thing.
That's insane.
So yeah, it was super fun. Just the rush of just all these comments flooding in. It trickles over to, when you have a piece of content that goes viral like that, you see a ripple effect across all of your social media. It was really exciting. I got to have my first experience of, random Instagram channels ripping off of my content and stuff like that. So like nobody had ever cared enough before that to ever do anything like that. So even that was kind of fun. I was like, and so, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, just crazy and fun to see that happening. I think my subscribers doubled in a month. At the time, I believe I was still only at 50,000 subscribers. And I had been just kind of slowly burning away, growing slowly for the past couple years. And then, in a month, it had doubled to 100,000. And, for the sake of transparency, it was a nice, quick paycheck. I even looked up, because again, I don't get super, I don't really care about sharing things like this. I think it's kind of interesting. I think a lot of people are kind of curious, what does a video that gets that kind of views make? Because I think people have different expectations.
It's like, oh man, you're done. You don't have to work for the rest of your life.
Right.
You have 10 million views on YouTube, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if you would have asked me, I don't know what I would have said, 5 years ago, if somebody would have asked me how much you think you make if you have a video that passes 10 million views. I feel like it could be anywhere from $100,000 to $1,000. I would have no idea within that range what it could be. So again, for the sake of transparency, I got my analytics pulled up here. So the lifetime of that video, I've made $5,200.
Nice.
And so, I mean, yeah, it's and the majority of that was in that first, month or so of its existence. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a nice quick paycheck that you weren't necessarily expecting or counting on. That's still obviously not game-changing money. That's not career-making money, but it's still a nice paycheck.
12-year-old Nathan would have lost his mind.
Oh, man. Yeah. I probably would have thought that was game-changing. $5,000? Have you ever seen this much money in your life?
You could buy all the video games I want.
Oh, man.
I don't have to borrow them off of my friends anymore.
My mooching days are over.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, yeah. Now, here is kind of where it, for lack of a better word, I guess, shattered my my expectations. So, at this point, right, as the views are skyrocketing, as I'm seeing some dollar signs coming in my mind, my naive young YouTube Nathan's mind, I felt like this was the pivotal moment. Like this is it, everything's going to be easy from here. Like my career has been made.
Your channel's taking off now.
Right. This is the moment. It's all, I never know whether it's downhill or uphill. It's all downhill because that's easy, but that also sounds like it's going down and getting worse.
Yeah.
But
that is weird, but downhill.
It's downhill. All right. So it's all downhill from here. But what I realized is that going viral is often very fleeting. And it's, as a whole, for most people, not going to be game changing for their career. And I say that not to be negative or not to like complain or whine about the situation. But kind of just to inform, like to educate people in the sense, because I know I myself was chasing that moment for my entire career leading up to that. And I think a lot of people are constantly chasing that moment, and it's important to be prepared for the fact that, yes, it's a good thing. There's lots of good that can come out of it, but that moment in and of itself is not going to make or break your career. And so that was kind of, at the time, that was a hard realization for me. And it was a gradual realization. Because what happened was I started to realize that I put out my next video and it got very, very few views. In fact, let me pull up what video I did put up after that.
Yeah, man, I remember us talking and like how drastic of a it was like you're on a roller coaster of emotions, because you know, it was like you're on the top of the world, and then you know, yeah, it was like, man, this is not what I expected. People aren't watching. And then, well, I'll let you get to it, but then you started making a couple other Fortnite videos. And
right. So yeah, what I did immediately after my first Fortnite video, I did Monster Hunter World.
Oh, I love that, dude. That's one of my favorite that you've done. I'd never even played the game.
Right, me neither.
But oh my gosh, I love that one.
Yeah, and at the time, I think the game had just come out too, so it was like, it made sense to where, like, you know, I thought hype would be kind of buzzing about it. But even to this day, that video has 50,000 views.
Oh, that's crazy.
Which is fine. But again, you know, after the craziness of the video right before it, and I know at the time, you know, that's 50,000 over the course of a couple of years. At the time, it really didn't do much of anything. So really, all the people that were subscribing to me because of this Fortnite did not click on that video. And so that was my first realization that I was like, oh, okay. So then I tried another thing that was a lot more of a, quote, kind of viral formula. Again, I did top TV sitcom themes on guitar. Similar format where I had like the monitors behind me playing the different like intros for these shows, like Friends and The Office and The Big Bang Theory and Seinfeld. And that video also didn't really strike much of a nerve either. Still a really fun video though. Then I did Westworld. Not too much. Avengers Infinity War. That video did, that one did well, pop. Yeah. That's got like 2.5 million. Because again, that movie was kind of a global phenomenon as well. And here's kind of the kicker that I'm going to touch on as well. The big thing about making viral content, and this is what I kind of realized, is that the Fortnite demographic, the general demographic of people who are into Fortnite, were not necessarily people that are into most of my other content. And so I'll talk about that a little bit more, but I think Avengers did kind of hit some of that same demographic. I mean, Avengers has a very wide
crossover there.
Yeah, it has a very wide appeal. But for example, like, you know, just because Monster Hunter World was a video game doesn't mean that, you know, mostly younger kids who play Fortnite, you know, is largely a younger demographic, weren't generally the same people who were playing Monster Hunter World.
Yeah, and Fortnite's free, so it's going to have a much larger audience than a game that you have to pay for.
Right. That's a big factor too that I didn't really think about, is that it's definitely going to have an appeal to younger kids because they don't have to pay for it and their parents don't have to pay for it. So that contributed to a lot of its success as well. But then that's when I decided to follow up. I guess I was like starting to get a little desperate, and I did Fortnite Dances on Guitar Part 2. So after the Avengers one, that's when I did that one. And yeah, right again, instantly, it was like night and day. As soon as I put that video up, all those subscribers who had subscribed for the first video all of a sudden came out of the woodworks and watched that video. And that one's at like 7.8 million now. So yeah, this was all kind of a learning process. And like we talked about last week, I was still kind of learning how to deal with this like disappointment of when videos don't perform the way that I think they should. And then so coming off of the high of this video really taking off, it was hard for me to kind of navigate my my expectations of how these other videos were performing. So yeah, I think with this, kind of what I realized, the biggest thing that impacted my viral moment to where that it maybe didn't have the reach to throughout the rest of my videos and the rest of my content that it could have is like what I talked about before. A lot of the Fortnite demographic isn't going to be interested in my other content. So what I learned from that, and what I would encourage anybody out there who is, if you are going to chase that viral moment, it's going to be the most effective and have the farthest reaching and longest impact on your career if the content that goes viral is similar to your normal content, right? So you don't want to completely change what you do, like to chase that moment, right? You don't want to just make something totally out of left field that has nothing to do with the rest of your content, because the people who follow you because of that one piece of content are going to expect more stuff like that. And when they don't get that, they're going to lose interest. Yeah.
And this may have been speculation on your part, but didn't you say that like YouTube doesn't treat videos that don't do well with their own subscribers, like that it's not a favorable thing in YouTube's algorithm's eyes or whatever, that if your subscribers don't watch your video, then YouTube doesn't favor it or something like that?
Most things with the YouTube algorithm are speculation because they are pretty close-lipped as far as exactly how it works, because they don't want people to abuse the system and gamify it. But they are open about a couple things, and that one is watch time, so how much time people spend watching your videos, and another is click-through rate, right? Which is when somebody sees your video, right? Like whether it's in their subscriber feed, or so as a subscriber, if they're looking through, who they're subscribed to has a new video, if they see your thumbnail, and they choose not to click on it, that impacts your click-through rate. And so as that goes down, that means it sends a signal to YouTube's algorithm that says, hey, like this guy's subscribers are not interested in this video. It must not be a very interesting video. It must not be very good. Yeah. So we're not going to recommend it to other people, because we want people to click on videos so they stay on YouTube and they watch more ads. That's where the money is. And so we're going to put another video in that recommended spot instead. This was and this was another moment where you kind of had to talk me through it, and I was feeling really discouraged because I had this was probably a few months after all this happened. I started to see what seemed like some unforeseen side effects of this whole phenomenon, where I had such an influx of subscribers that were interested only in Fortnite content, and anything that I made that wasn't Fortnite related, only a fraction of my subscribers would watch. And so I realized that I kind of had this inflated subscriber count, and I was really concerned that was, like you were saying, like hurting my overall videos performance and their potential to reach other people. And so I do think that's a real thing. So it is important. Most people who are chasing those viral moments aren't creating their typical content, right? Or at least not creating the content that they want to be making 10 years down the line, right?
I mentioned this last week, and I don't mean to call these people out. Like they're doing what they got to do to try and make it or whatever. But there's a guy that had a channel with like he did do some rap songs, but like it's got like an acting reel and like some short films, like documentary stuff, and like he randomly did this Dr. Seuss rap, and that went viral, and now that's like all he's doing. And in my mind, I'm like, what? Like, how long can you keep that up before like that fizzles? Like you run out of Dr. Seuss books or whatever, and maybe he'll go on to other kids' books or whatever,
right?
And that's great. And then there's another guy that recently I stumbled upon his channel who he just did a lot of like random commentary on things like Dragon Ball Z or movies, or he's kind of all over the place as far as what he would what he would cover on his channel. And then he randomly did one where he watched I don't even remember which movie it was. It was a nerdy-ish movie like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or something like that.
Yeah.
And he watched it with his friend. His friend had never seen it, and he like filmed his friend reacting to it. Oh, I think it was Star Wars, actually. I think it was a Star Wars movie. But anyway, so he filmed his friend reacting to it, and that blew up. And now they're just doing like him watching movies with his friend, who apparently hasn't seen like anything, because his friend he hadn't seen like any of the MCU movies, any of the Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, like nothing. So anyway, he's watching all these movies with his friend, and like that's all they're doing now. And now they're doing like live streams and like Q&As and all this stuff.
Nice.
And then other channels where they do like Google Translate songs, and then like they want to do a serious song. Like the Google Translate songs are kind of like a joke, and then they want to do a serious song, and the serious songs like perform like terribly.
Right.
It's really interesting how that all works, because once people expect a certain type of entertainment, that they want to go back for that same thing. It's kind of like if you go into a movie thinking like, oh, this is going to be like a comedy, and you go in and it's more of a drama, and you keep expecting to laugh, and you're like, man, that was terrible, because it wasn't funny.
Right.
But if you went in thinking, oh, this is going to be a drama, like then you might come out thinking, oh, that was actually a really good movie.
Right.
So expectations are key.
Yeah, it's all about what people are looking for. And so you want to position yourself in a way that, best case scenario, your normal video, whatever it is that you're passionate about, your week to week formula, one of those pops off, then that's going to have a much more impactful and longer lasting effect on your career and on your just overall social media presence and your growth. But again, that's usually not the case, because most people's, I guess the type of content that it's exhausting trying to make viral content. I mean, again, after all this, I've stopped chasing it as much. And it's hard to sustain that. And it's generally not a formula that, that I don't think most people are passionate about the formula that's required to make viral content, especially if you're a serious content creator that, is really serious and passionate about your music. In our case, most serious content doesn't go viral. Yeah.
Well, and it's so hard to know too, because some of your most viewed videos that, aside from Fortnite, are ones that I wouldn't necessarily have thought anyway that they would be super popular. Like one of the most popular ones aside from the Fortnite videos is the Punisher theme for Marvel.
Right.
And that's definitely not one that I would have anticipated would do so well.
Yeah.
And another one's like Last of the Mohicans, which is like a, 30-year-old movie.
Right.
And so just like random stuff like that. I just don't think you can really, it's kind of like trying to hit the jackpot like on purpose. Like you can't know when you're going to hit the jackpot. It's just going to happen, and you don't really have control over that.
Yeah, that's really important. And so do you want to make content that is based around something you can't control, right? Which is largely, is it going to be picked up by the algorithm? Of course, quality plays a big role. But chasing that viral moment, a lot of what makes something go viral is out of your control. There's formulaic things like I talked about with the layers and things like that you can consider, but a lot of it is out of your control. And so I think you are much better served focusing on things that you can control, focusing, purely on the quality of your content and how much value it's going to give to people, right? Whether that's 100 people or 10 million people, focusing on the value that you give to people in that experience, rather than just chasing that fleeting viral moment is really more important. The interesting thing, actually, on the Punisher video, somebody commented the other day and said, they were like, I totally get why this has more views than the original. And I don't know if that's true, but if that's true, that's insane. I don't know. That can't be true. He must have found like some other like knockoff video of the original Punisher theme or something, because there's no way that mine has more. But either way, that's crazy. Yeah. But yeah, no, I didn't expect that one to really take off in the same sense. And that one is more, but that's a good example of that. It didn't go viral nearly in the same sense. I think it has like 2 million views maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
But that's still a crazy number, but that's more in line with the content that I like to make on a, regular basis. And so that definitely had more of a longer lasting impact. The people that watch that video and subscribe are much more likely to stick around.
Yeah. And a lot of those videos, like you kind of alluded to, there it was more of a slow burn as far as the amount of people that watched it. So it wasn't like this instantaneous like spike. It was kind of more of like a gradual mounting number of views. And I feel like those, like you said, they have more of a lasting impact on your channel.
Yeah, well, and that's the other interesting thing about the algorithm. Again, you can never predict it. One video, there's like 2 videos that come to mind in particular that I considered a disappointment in as far as their performance when I first released them. Number 1, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. That's one that has come to mind recently because in the recent couple months, it's just randomly like started taking off again to where it started getting, I think last month it got like another 100 or 200,000 views randomly. And it's been out, I put that out like October of 2018. So
yeah, it's crazy. Didn't that happen with your Pixar?
Yeah, that was the other one.
Themes, whatever.
Right. So both of these videos, especially the Assassin's Creed, when I first put that out, I was like, man, nobody watched this, and now it's at like 700,000 views. And then same thing with the Pixar. That one really didn't do much, and then just out of nowhere, it just took off months after I'd released it, and now it's at like 1.5 million. So it's like the algorithm is a real mystery. But that's like yet another lesson behind this. Ties probably more back into last week's episode with how to manage your disappointment and how things perform. One of the beauties of YouTube and putting content out there on platforms that are searchable is that it's evergreen content, meaning it's content that's going to be there for as long as YouTube exists, and it's going to be there for people to discover for as long as YouTube exists. And so what might seem like a failure to you based on whatever expectations you put on yourself when you first put it out there, you look back at it months down the line, a year down the line, those views continue. Even if it doesn't do anything crazy, they still just gradually continue to grow, and people continue to discover you through it. So that's really just the, consistency and sticking with it, not getting burnt out trying to make viral videos every week. It's much more important to make videos week after week after week and do it in a way that's sustainable.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the things too that you've learned, Nathan, is like diversification as far as like you are going through a music publisher and like getting your songs put out on different platforms. And, just because something doesn't perform well on YouTube it might perform really well on Spotify or iTunes or whatever.
Right.
And I know you've experienced that with a couple of your tracks, you like the race theme and songs like that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to know that if you're starting to gain an audience and you kind of expand if you kind of expand onto different platforms, it's possible that, just because something doesn't do that great on one, it might do well on the other.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because the raise theme that you were mentioning on YouTube, I don't know where it's at right now, but it never got too many views, but it's like my top streamed track on Spotify, because it got picked up by a big playlist. And so, yeah, it's a good point. Diversifying. You never know what's gonna take off.
Nathan, here's the big question though.
Oh gosh.
So Fortnite 2 comes out and it's a huge hit. Do you do another Fortnite video?
Do I?
That's the big question.
I did.
No. I mean,
you're talking.
You've done you've done 3 already. Right. I mean, like, let's say like 5 years from now or whatever. Right. I don't know what the Fortnite dudes are doing. Let's say they're like, if we make a sequel, kind of like Pokemon Go. Like, no one was playing Pokemon, and then all of a sudden Pokemon Go came out, and like everybody and their mom was playing it. So let's say Fortnite 2 comes out. Like, what do you do?
So like 10 years down the line, I'm a middle-aged man. Am I gonna don the wig again?
You're still putting out, bi-weekly music videos on YouTube.
That's right. Am I gonna don the legendary blue wig one more time?
Although you didn't do that for part 3.
I feel true. Like I stopped trying.
That was some, exactly. I feel like that was some silent protest on your part.
It was a little bit.
Like,
there was a lot.
Kids, these kids asked me to cut my nails and.
Yeah, it's like, I'll do another one of these videos, but it's only for the money. I'm not gonna put on that
wig. Yeah, man.
No, I think part of that was. Ninja, I think, had started to fall from grace a little bit, so I was like,
I see.
I'm not necessarily going to tie myself to his name, and there was a lot. But no, that's a good question. Would I make another Fortnite video? No. At this point, I am done. I'm done feeding that beast. Although the interesting thing is,
purpose.
is by then the interesting thing would be, honestly, if I was to make another Fortnite video, let's say it was like 5 years down the line, because by then all the like 12-year-olds that are playing now will be, like 17, 19, whatever the case may be. If I was to do another one,
it goes back to that nostalgia thing we were talking about.
If I was to do one, I would do not one of like the dances. I would do the original Fortnite like theme song, because it would have that. It wouldn't be as viral, and so I would feel better. Like I would feel, because honestly, it would have that same nostalgic effect on me, because I did really enjoy playing Fortnite when it first came back, and listening to that original theme song, because they've changed it since, has that effect a little bit already. So if I was to consider it, it would be for that, because it would actually be giving an emotional experience to those, those kids who were once, trapping me in a box and shooting me like a trapped animal and cussing at me over the mic and.
They might realize that they made a mistake in subscribing to you only for Fortnite videos. They might go back and watch all of your other videos.
That's right.
And your channel, just blow up.
That's right.
I think you have something else to chase now. You gotta talk.
Yeah.
that's the true viral moment, man.
That is the moment. It'll come full circle. We'll reconvene on that. With the in the next like 5 years or so. I won't completely close that that chapter if it's for that reason specifically. But
I'll hold you to that.
Yeah. So one thing with another thing that really impacts how effective this viral moment is going to be is how you capitalize on it. Right? So we talked about this a little bit with like, if I would make another Fortnite video and things like that. So Jeremiah, I'm actually curious here. I'm going to put you on the spot because, when this happened, I had no idea. Nobody's, unless you've had this happen before, or unless you have like an agent or a mentor, or nobody's really prepared to know how to best capitalize on these moments. Some people are just more savvy than others and manage to capitalize it kind of on it just by maybe sheer luck or whatever. But let's say if Coronambient EP, right, if it just blew up and it went completely viral right now, what would you do? What would kind of be your instinct to capitalize on that and to try to keep that momentum going?
Oh man, that's a good question. Well, I mean, I'm sure Andrew would want to make more. I mean, the thing is, so even though it's a lot of work, doing that kind of album is a lot easier than doing like a full, like a band, like regular rock or indie rock music, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Because you have to record drums, you got to record vocals, you got to record guitars, and typically you want things to sound a little more polished. I mean, our stuff is still kind of lo-fi or like DIY sounding on purpose because that's the aesthetic we like. But
yeah,
it's way more work. So if it did go viral, I mean, I'm assuming we would just want to crank more out. I mean, it also kind of depends how much money we're making because, $5,000 is nice, but in the Bay Area, it's pretty much what you spend at the gas station filling up your tank, Yeah. So it's like, it's gone in the blink of an eye.
Right.
But, unfortunately, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'm sure, yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure we'd want to crank more out. But on the other hand, I mean, we do have more, like rock or more standard songs in the works already. And, I'm sure we would still want to put those out, and we'd probably be bummed that like if that album got a whole bunch of listens, but then our previous stuff didn't.
Right.
It's like, come on, you should listen to our older stuff. It's pretty good too,
Yeah, it would kind of be that similar phenomenon, right? Where that's not necessarily indicative of your normal sound, right? And so you'd kind of have to make that choice that we're talking about of how far do you go? Like, do you really go hard on that ambient sound and that's what you become? Or do you kind of come to terms with the fact that, you're going to capitalize on that by putting out more of that, but then you're also going to put out the other stuff that you enjoy and that you might consider more of your typical sound, knowing that a lot of those people have come to expect the ambient and aren't necessarily going to listen to that as much. And, I think, it would be a very similar scenario. So yeah, I did not capitalize on that moment well. I think if I had known better, I think I could have really thought through how to capitalize on that better than I did. We talked about this. The extent to which I capitalized on it was I made 3 of the videos, right? And they were kind of sprinkled out over the span of a few months. I made the Fortnite video, made a bunch of other ones completely unrelated. Then I, made Fortnite Dances Part 2. A few months later, Fortnite Dances Part 3. And then I had kind of realized that it really didn't look like anybody who was interested in Fortnite was going to be interested in my other stuff. So I kind of abandoned that completely. So I think ideally
How hard was that for you to make that decision?
It was really hard. Yeah, it was a lot of going back and forth on. I had a big YouTuber who I really admired. Reach out. I mean, it's Peter Hollins. For those of you who know, he does a cappella stuff, and he was a guy that when I first started YouTube, I was familiar with him because he was doing kind of what I wanted to do, but just with voice instead of like, so he was doing like movie music and video game music and stuff as a cappella covers. And so I was familiar with his work, and he was one of those people who I looked up to who was making this work. And so I even, like in my early days of YouTube, he did a competition where you could put out a cover of one of his original songs and get a chance to collaborate with him. And I didn't end up making that, but I was really, that was a thing that I was really hoping for. And that was in my mind too. At the time I was like, oh, if I just get a collaboration with him, I'll be set. Same kind of thing. And so after all this stuff, went viral, he reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do a Fortnite collaboration, because he saw the success that, I had with these Fortnite videos, and, which was crazy to me. Cause again, this is the guy who all this time I was hoping to be able to be kind of viewed as a peer, and to be able to collaborate with him. And so it was a really cool thing for him to reach out to me. But I had made that hard decision that I was done. And so I even had to I told him, I said, I've seen that the content, that the type of music that I'm passionate about, and that the audience that I really want to serve, it just doesn't fit with Fortnite. And so I just don't want to feed that side of my audience anymore, because if they're not going to be interested in the music that I'm really passionate about, I think it's just best that we kind of part ways. And so I said, I would love to do something else with you. That would be amazing, but I'm done with Fortnite. And so, it didn't happen, but,
that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so I really had to kind of stick with my guns, because I knew not only would another Fortnite video do really well, but it would also be with this other, big time YouTuber who I really admired as well. And so that was kind of a moment where I had to kind of stick to, stay true to what I cared about.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was definitely a hard decision.
Much respect, bro. Respect.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, then that's the thing, is you gotta.
That's a grown man move right there. It's a man who knows what he wants.
Yeah, I have my moments, I suppose, but no, it came out of there was a lot of back and forth for a long time, but once I had made the decision, I knew I couldn't backpedal on it. And I don't look back to this day. I think, again, if your career's going to have legs, if it's going to last, you've got to do what you're passionate about. You've got to play music that you genuinely care about, and you have to. I know the people who are really invested in me and my music. I want to play music that they're really passionate about as well, right? Like if I am going to make compromises and play things that I might not be a huge fan of, I want to make sure that it's at least music that they are really passionate about, because they're people who genuinely care about what I'm doing. Yeah. And that's that long-term relationship rather than that fleeting thing that comes with those viral videos. So yeah, I think if I was to do it again though, how exactly I would do this, I don't know. But ideally, if you're going to capitalize on your content, like I said before, ideally you want your viral content to be the same as your standard content anyway. If it is, it's a lot easier to capitalize on it, because essentially you can just keep doing what you're doing and you're capitalizing on that, just continuing to put out content frequently. But if what goes viral, like in my case was this Fortnite, And I realized that demographic isn't necessarily the same as my typical demographic. Ideally, what you want to do is you want to create follow-up content that is similar, but then somehow bridges the gap between that viral video and your normal videos. So I had zero strategy when I did it, but I would, if I was to do it again, maybe I would do like maybe a Fortnite part 2 right away, right? And then I would think about maybe a movie or a TV show that has nostalgic value for that younger age group maybe. I know, like, I think How to Train Your Dragon, I don't know exactly the timeline of that, but I know that it is a younger group than us that has that real strong nostalgic value with those movies. Something like that, where it's beautiful music that I genuinely enjoy, even though I don't have any emotional connection with the movies, but something like that where they can relate to that. But the music starts to play more of an important role. And then maybe they start to think, oh, like this guy can actually like play, and like, oh, the guitar it really is a beautiful instrument. Cause that's the crazy thing about this whole viral moment too, is a lot of these kids probably never even heard a classical guitar before. A lot of them, probably hadn't even seen somebody play the guitar like finger style. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's not a mainstream thing. Judging by how many comments I got about cutting my fingernails, I think it's safe to say that they're not used to that. And so, gently kind of bringing them into that and helping them fall in love with the instrument. If I was to do it again, that's how that would kind of be my goal, because I joke on all these Fortnite kids and everything, like I give them a hard time, but ultimately, like, I would love to inspire a young generation of kids who never thought about playing guitar before to pick up the guitar and play. And so even more than,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, even more than like capitalizing it on that for whatever type of monetary gain, the coolest thing would be, you think you reach 13 million, mostly kids. Like if you can inspire a percentage of those to pick up the guitar and make a decision that could ultimately have an impact on the rest of their lives, like playing an instrument, that would be so cool. And I'm sure some of the kids who watch that still watch my videos and had potentially were inspired. But if I was more strategic on that, maybe I could have reached more in that sense.
Yeah, man. Hindsight's always 20/20, but I think, like I said before, I do respect the fact that you chose to like kind of just stick with what you had intended to do from the start. And yeah, I could tell at the time that it was a really hard decision to make, but I think it's worked out so far anyway.
Yeah, I don't regret it at all. And it was a very good learning experience. And again, none of this is to complain. Like we talked about last episode, nobody owes me their attention, right? So I don't resent. I'm sure I did. And I'm sure you can attest to this. In my darker moments when all this was going on, I'm sure I was very. I know I was very resentful. It's like, why are they not watching this stuff? But looking back on it,
this music is so much better.
Right. But looking back on it, I don't resent anybody for not choosing to watch my other videos. And I'm very fortunate to have people who are, passionate about what I'm doing to the extent that I am able to make this my career. And so I think the encouragement that I just want to give people is that, like, these viral moments can kind of come and go, and they're totally fine in and of themselves, and they can be very impactful things, but it's not something that I think anybody should obsess over or relentlessly chase. Take them as they come and capitalize on them to the extent that you can, but also just realize that it's just kind of just part of that roller coaster journey of your career. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, and you've just got to be able to kind of ride the highs and continue to push through the lows, and just play that long game and make meaningful content rather than just chasing those fleeting viral moments.
Yeah, I just got reminded of this is kind of random, but the composers for the show Stranger Things, they were just like in this random kind of 80s-ish band, and the Duffer Brothers, who created Stranger Things, like stumbled upon their music, and they're like, "Hey, we want these guys to make the music for our show." And they just like, and they were like nobodies. They were like working at like the grocery stores, like literally grocery store clerks. And the Duffer Brothers reached out to them and said, "Hey, would you guys be down to make music for our show?"
That's nuts.
And their lives have completely changed. I mean, obviously, that's not going to be everyone's story, but it's kind of encouraging to hear those things where you just keep doing what you love, and hopefully people will notice.
Right. You don't know. Yeah, you don't know what's going to happen. Like putting content out there, putting music out there, and that ties back into focusing on what you can control, right? Like you can't control if something's going to go viral. You can't control if somebody's going to discover you and give you this, insane opportunity on a silver platter. But what you can control is putting out awesome music that you're really passionate about and that you work very hard on, to make the best that you can. And then opportunities can come out of that, right? Again, you can't control that, but people notice when you're doing something that you're passionate about. And
it's high, and it's good quality.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. I think I wanted, just before we wrap up here, I was thinking, when I was kind of thinking back through all this, I was thinking about kind of like what were some other moments that were really, really cool for me that, again, if 5 years ago, if these were to happen, these would be other scenarios that I would think like, oh, I'm set. My career is smooth sailing from here on out. And again, they didn't have that same impact that I would have anticipated back then, but just thinking back, they're moments that I'm like really proud of, and that it's just, I still kind of geek out about when I think about. This is one of the more recent ones. I did the last goodbye from the Hobbit trilogy, and Billy Boyd, who played Pippin, and who's the guy who sung that song, shared it, tweeted it.
That was so
and
nuts.
That was just crazy to me. I was geeking out. So, because if I was able to kind of tell 13-year-old Nathan, or whenever the Lord of the Rings, for the Fellowship of the Ring came out, that Pippin was going to see your video and hear you play guitar, man, I would have freaked out. And so that was really cool. And that's just such a beautiful song, and how it ties together the Hobbit trilogies and the Lord of the Rings trilogies as films is it does it so beautifully. So that was a really cool moment. A smaller moment, but still crazy, was I did a medley of The Greatest Showman. And there was an opportunity to like submit a cover and have it was really weird. They made it sound like it was going to be played if you got selected, your video was going to be played at the Oscars. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I submitted my video, which I had already made at the time. And I don't really know what happened. That never ended up happening. But Hugh Jackman shared a clip of like, they ended up taking some selections and putting them into this compilation video. And my video made the cut, and he shared like a clip of it on his Instagram. And so it was just this it was a real short thing, but it was just kind of crazy to be like, for however short, like Hugh Jackman saw me playing, which is kind of,
yeah, dude,
Wolverine.
You've had some crazy shout outs or whatever you call that one, but
right. And I think one that, still, this is probably my favorite on a different level. Way back, I did.
Is it Always Sunny?
Yeah, I did. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Green Man, which this was another, like, I was kind of chasing that viral with the layers. I played this song from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, wearing a Green Man suit. Which, just look up the video if you don't know what I'm talking about. And it was just crazy, bizarre looking video. But Charlie Day, who plays Charlie in the show, reposted it on his Instagram. And I think that was actually the first out of all of these. That's the first that happened. And I'd been watching this show for forever. And so that was just nuts to me. And that was so cool. So
man, I love Charlie Day. He's so freaking funny.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, he's hilarious. I love that, man. And then, the last thing, too, is kind of happened fairly recently, too, is the Spider-Man Far From Home.
That's not the one I thought you were going to say.
Oh, yeah. Well, Michael Giacchino, the composer for that, he shared that, and he not only did he share it, but he said some like really kind things about it. He thanked me. He was like, I can't thank you enough for putting this out in the world. And that just, that extra little personal touch really meant a lot. Because again, this is a composer who, he composed for The Incredibles, right? When we were kids. And so this is a composer whose music I've heard for the majority of my life. And to hear that was just so cool. So to me, like all of, especially that, and like the Charlie Day and the Billy Boyd thing, like those mean a lot more to me than, getting millions of views. Those are just really cool moments. What did you think I was going to say?
Well, actually, it was Michael Giacchino as well, but the Batman thing.
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
He had to do, people do those little 6-second challenges or whatever on any music, and you did his little Batman teaser theme. That's a perfect example of nuts. Like how you just never know what's going to happen when unless you just put something out there. Yeah. Like it was literally, I spent like 5 minutes coming up with this super simple arrangement. I just filmed it with my cell phone, sitting there, probably like took a break from playing video games when I saw his tweet or something. And just, it was like the middle of the night. And yeah, he actually, cause he didn't share that. That's the crazy thing too, is he didn't even share it. He replied to it and he was like, oh, that's the Batman theme. And then the next day my Twitter started blowing up. I didn't realize it because, again, I've turned my notifications off on my phone, but I pulled up Twitter and I saw like I had all this stuff going on. I was like, what in the world happened? And I saw Matt Reeves, who's the director for the new Batman film, had retweeted it. And so the crazy thing about that is I feel, this is just speculation here, but I feel that Michael Giacchino must have like told him about it, because it was just this subtweet under this whole string of tweet replies that people were sending Michael Giacchino with them playing. And again, he didn't retweet it, so there's no reason that it should have really shown up. So yeah, Matt Reeves just retweeted my little, 5 second, it's literally 5 seconds because that was the challenge. Like 5 second Batman theme. That's just really crazy. Oh, that's crazy.
So you heard it here first. Matt Reeves, Michael Giacchino, if you need a guitar player on the Batman theme, I think we can come up with something really cool. I'm just saying.
Oh man. That's crazy. Have you seen Planet of the Apes yet? Those two movies?
I saw the first one back in the day. I know that I know you've been telling me to watch the other ones.
You gotta watch the last two, because those are the ones that are actually directed by
Matt Reeves.
Yeah. And actually Michael Giacchino did the music also. But those movies are just really, really good.
Yeah.
So hopefully Batman's good too. I'm pretty excited about it.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have plenty to talk about related to that when that comes out. Hopefully all good things.
Yeah, Robert Pattinson's got some big shoes to fill, but we could we could talk. This is gonna open up a whole other can of worms.
We always geek out about this stuff.
We have both watched some of his later movies, and he is a really, really, really good actor.
Yeah,
he's a very good actor. So I'm hoping that he does a good job.
Yeah, we were both among the many people who were kind of like, what in the world? Like, they cast Twilight guy as Batman. But then, we dug and saw these other roles that he's been taking. And I'm definitely a fan now. So, I mean, anyway, we're curious. Definitely hit us up on Instagram. You know, I'm Beyond the Guitar on Instagram. Jeremiah's Chomachi on Instagram. Hit us up and let us know. I mean, if you would like to see us episodes of us literally just kind of geeking out about movies and things like that, sometimes in the podcast as well, we would love to. Just that's what we talk about, on the phone when we're not on the podcast. So if you guys would be interested in that, we definitely would be down. So, but on that note, we'll wrap things up. Thank you so much for listening. Hope this was encouraging to you in whatever capacity. If this isn't anything that you necessarily relate to, hopefully it was still informative and entertaining. If you want to learn how to make your own classical or fingerstyle guitar arrangements, you can go to my website, beyondtheguitar.com, and take my free training, Fretboard Freedom, to get started. If you want to watch any of these videos that we've been talking about, you can search me up on YouTube, Beyond the Guitar, and all other social media, Beyond the Guitar as well. Jeremiah, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can just look up Chomachi. That's Chomachi, and currently have a single out, but there'll be more content coming soon, I promise. I've just been focused on other projects, but so Chomachi, and then my band Junko, we just put out an EP called the Corone Ambient EP, you can look it up if you're looking for something to kind of ease your nerves or soothe your soul or whatever. It's just kind of relaxing ambient music.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you. As always, much love, and we'll see you in the next one.